that's kind of where we thought we need to empower these parents and let them know how much power and how much influence they actually can have if they have the right tools and do it in the right way.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Missions That Made Them. I am your host, Jason Verdelli. This isn't just a podcast, but rather it's a movement. It's a movement designed to make the world a better place by bringing more awareness to the great work of the people and organizations making a difference, and more importantly, how you can help. We live in a world today surrounded by a narrative in the media that focuses in on negativity and draws attention to the problems, but not the solutions. Our guests represent the solutions, not the problems. With that, I am super excited today to have on our guest, Kelly Prunty, with Addiction is Real. And what these guys are doing is absolutely incredible. We're going to listen to hear their story and more importantly, how you can help. You as the listener, if somebody's watching this right now, the goal of the Missions That Made Them is to be to enable you to be able to be a part of that solution. And Kelly and the Addiction is Real team have provided a solution and a way for you to be able to do that. So we're going to learn their story and more importantly, again, how you can help. So Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So tell everybody, what is Addiction is Real? What's the organization about?
So we were founded in 2015. We're a nonprofit that educates parents in drug prevention. So we basically, our goal is to provide parents with the tools and the knowledge and the empowerment that they need to go home and start implementing drug prevention in their home the very next day, so that they can do everything in their power to try and keep their kids from having to suffer with addiction later in life.
That's awesome. What I want to dig into this a little bit. I mean, what do you see with the problems with addiction in children and everything? I mean, what's the problem? I don't know if you have any statistics or anything like that you can share.
So it's becoming more and more of a problem, specifically with the fentanyl that's out in the market right now. So kids are starting to experiment at younger ages, and the drugs are becoming much more dangerous, potent, and deadly. So educating these kids is so important, because the bottom line is we have a major drug problem in the United States. And, I worked a lot with the DEA, and they do their best to get these drug dealers off the street and in prison. But as soon as you arrest one drug dealer, there's going to be another one to step up and take his place, because it's an incredibly lucrative business. So they're not going to be able to end this war. This war is going to end with us no longer having this huge demand for drugs in our country. And that starts by educating everyone, especially teenagers and young kids, about the dangers of these drugs.
Yeah. That's it's very important. I think too I knew when I was growing up and going through school, there was the education, right? That you watch the video in I don't know if it was gym class or health and PE class or whatever it was, but you'd watch these things and they would show you the just the what can happen if you get involved in the drugs and everything else. But I think the challenge though with that was that, it's watching something on a television inside of a classroom is one thing, but then hearing it from your parents and hearing it from, and more importantly, enabling the parents to share that information in a way that doesn't sound authoritative, like don't do drugs,
Right.
Yeah. Well, guess what? That makes them more curious as to what this is all about, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
How our whole mission started, because we got together and we're kind of looking at, okay, what's out there, and there are these programs at school, and there was the DARE program, that was a 10-week program in 5th grade where you learn about these different things, but at a very top level from somebody that you usually don't know very well. And so when we found this research that parents can have a huge impact on whether or not their kids use drugs, the research showed that parents who regularly talk to their kids about the dangers of drugs and alcohol, those kids are up to 50% less likely to use. So that's a huge, I mean, you can cut your chance in half just by having these important conversations. And we looked at each other and thought, well, I don't think most parents realize that, I think most parents think that their teens don't really care what they think. They're not really listening. And so it's kind of like, well, I'm not even going to try and, change their mind. They're going to do what they're going to do, using alcohol in high school as a rite of passage and all these, myths that parents have come to believe. And so that's kind of where we thought we need to empower these parents and let them know how much power and how much influence they actually can have if they have the right tools and do it in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, what's also interesting is in what you're doing is really eliminating that barrier, trying to eliminate that barrier between parent and the child, right? And understanding and how, and more importantly, how to come across that, or how to acknowledge those things. Like you said, it impacts it by 50%, whether or not they hear that, they hear the message, but more importantly, how to do it. Because I mean, I'm a parent. I have a child, and it's and he gets into school, and as he continues to grow up, I mean, these are like are going to have that conversation, because they're introduced to it. I know when I was going through high school and especially college, once you hit college, I mean, it really was evident, because it is everywhere at almost every university and everything. So there's no escaping it, but it's how you handle that and how you prepare that child early in life too. So they're aware how to, that's really a big part of that solution, I can see. How did the go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have, a parent guide that we give out to parents that has how to talk to your kid about the dangers of drugs and alcohol as early as preschool. Obviously, you mentioned that you have a 4-year-old. You're not going to talk to your 4-year-old about heroin, but you might talk to them about healthy, how to be healthy and put healthy things in your body. And, you only take a medicine if a doctor gives it to you, or if your mom and dad say that you can get that, you should take that medicine, and that sort of thing. So there are conversations that you can start really early, but then kind of make it comfortable to continue having these conversations as they get older, because it's something that you've already been talking about their whole life.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And the other thing is if you're doing that and consistently, not just with drugs and alcohol and those things, but it's other things that come up in life, right? Other situations that maybe pop up, and you start to really build trust into that and think, okay, thank God for my parents to let me know about these things. I know when I grew up, my parents were very, that they didn't go through formal training or anything like that. But they were just made me aware of these things. They weren't sheltering me from, hey, the world's so great out there and it's so perfect and it's going to be amazing. No, the world's like, at the end of the day, and I'm a positive, optimistic kind of guy, I mean, that's why I run the Missions That Made Them, right? Like that's why this is a optimistic podcast, but at the same time, we know you have to be optimistic, because we know we live in a world that's not like that. That's surrounded with the influence of drugs, especially at a younger and younger age. Yeah. And man, I'd say you can start to build that trust early and everything else. I mean, it just helps that helps them through the rest of their life. I still am impacted by conversations I had when I was like 10, saying, "Hey, this is going to be around you." Right. This is going to be around you, and people are going to offer you this. And I'm like, what is that thing? What is weed? What is, what needles? What is that? And, but people are, when you start seeing people, when you go to the vet, hey, this person was using a needle or whatever. Okay. Well, yeah, that might be heroin, or that might be this. Like, you can't, you're not dancing around those things.
And research shows that, kids are really they're inundated with messages every day, especially now with, even being on the iPads and the social media and all that. But even just like a 7 or 8-year-old kid walking into a Target store with their parents, and if you see a T-shirt that says, rosé all day, or something
Right.
like that. I mean, there are messages everywhere inundating these kids about substance use.
Yeah.
And it's highly encouraged, specifically alcohol use is highly encouraged in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So
There's emoticons for it. I mean, if you're like, your kids learn about that. Oh, yeah, beer's okay. It's an emoticon. It's right next to the smiley face and the emoticon thing. Like,
the research
I don't know
shows
if it's next to the smiley
they're
face, but
starting to decide whether or not they're going to drink as they get older by fourth grade. They're 9 years old, but they're already starting to make these decisions
wow.
just by all the messages that they're getting and whether
Sure.
or not they're cool with it or not. So, just having these conversations at a young age is really important.
Yeah. So, Kelly, tell me about, I'm always interested to hear about how organizations like this get started. Is there a backstory? What's the backstory? I guess what's the backstory behind Addiction is Real? How did this come about?
So, I grew up with, my father was an alcoholic. I think I remember I was in about 7th grade. He sat me down and told me that he was going to quit drinking and go into recovery, and he did. So I kind of had that experience. And then my youngest sister was about 4 when he went into recovery. And I never really thought that any of us would have to deal with this addiction in our family again. Fortunately, she started to struggle a lot with anxiety and depression when she was in high school, and that quickly led to a substance abuse disorder. So she struggled with addiction for about 15 years and actually just passed away this past October from a drug overdose. But I really started feeling the need to do something when she was kind of in the height of everything. My dad ended up passing away from lung cancer about 3 or 4 years into her addiction. And I remember he sat me down because he knew he only had a little bit of time left, and he knew our family was struggling with this huge problem. And he was the one that had the most experience and kind of took the lead on trying to help my sister because he himself had struggled with addiction. But he knew that he wasn't going to be around for much longer. And he sat me down and he said, Kelly, you have to manage this for me once I'm not here to do it anymore. Like, you have to look over this situation and make sure your mom's okay and do everything you can to take care of your sister. Looking back after a lot of therapy, I think I finally figured out that wasn't exactly what he meant. Like, that's a huge ask of someone.
Right. It's true.
I did my best, to try and help her as I could, but I learned that, you can't manage someone else's addiction. They have to choose to help themselves. And so I got to a point where I felt like I needed to do something, but I knew I couldn't change her life. But I thought if I could help other families not have to go down this path at all, then that would be worth everything. So I actually went and heard a speaker. His name's Jude Hassan. So he and I co-founded Addiction is Real. Cool. And he was a recovered heroin addict who became a heroin addict in high school, came from a good family, had a normal upbringing, but just fell into this drug use because he suffered from some anxiety and social anxiety. And so I went to hear him speak. And after he spoke, and by the way, he wrote an incredible book, Suburban Junkie. It's his story of how he fell into drug addiction in high school. So I read his book, and then I went to hear him speak, and I approached him afterwards and said, I love your story. You're so brave to get up in front of all these people and tell it and try and help people. I feel like I want to try and help people too. Like, what can we do together? And so that's when he said, let's put our heads together and figure something out. So we did. And we kind of looked at the market of what was out there right now with educating parents and kids about the dangers of drugs. And we found this kind of gap that people weren't really educating the parents. The kids were hearing from different sources, but the parents weren't and didn't really know that they had this incredible power that they could harness at home. So, if we thought, well, we could go talk to the kids too, but they'll hear from us one time. That's a little blip on their, long radar of life. If we can give the parents the tools who are their most trusted guardians in their life, and they're involved in their life every day, then we're making an even larger impact and a bigger difference. So that's been our mission.
When it hits from home first, right? That is, I'm sure that gets you through a lot of times through this, or in building this organization too, right? The why is very clear, very evident. And the fact, first off, I want to commend you.
Thanks.
On here, because to go through an experience and to have go through issues like that with family, and be able to take it to the next level and creating an organization that impacts other people so they don't have to go through this, and don't experience the downside, really the negative effects and everything, and really the impact it can have on other people's lives that are around, individuals that are suffering, that need help. That right there is everything that I talk about on the podcast, is exactly why this podcast was created, is to bring, to make people more aware of the stories, and the people that are taking action to do that. I mean, you could have just sulked and sat there and felt sorry for yourself, or what did I do wrong, and this and that, and you have all these. I'm sure you had a lot of different emotions going through your head along this entire journey. But when you shift, I think what you've done is you've shifted that energy into making the world a better place by impacting your by taking that energy and now funneling it through other beings, other people that need that. And more importantly, you're empowering the parents and the people that have the ability to touch those people and to make the difference there, which I think is just absolutely incredible. It's why I do this and everything else. So your story is amazing. You are amazing. And just, I love what you guys are doing. It's just so awesome. So, so tell me about the programs. I knew you. So it's the educational programs with parents.
Yeah.
How is that delivered? I mean, is it how parent watching this right now? They're saying, okay, how can I access this and everything? How can you access the programs?
Yeah, so we're located headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. So we started just reaching out to local schools and doing presentations for parents. That includes like a 45-minute presentation. But the other part of our program that's really cool is called Hidden in Plain View. And so not only are we giving parents the prevention information they need, but we also educate parents on how to recognize the signs of substance use, so that if your kid does start going down that path, you can intervene sooner. Because obviously the sooner you can get them help, the better the outcome. So we actually come in and set up a teen bedroom. So it'd be in the middle of like a school gymnasium or library, wherever. We set up this teen bedroom that has over 70 red flags in it. And we encourage parents to go through the room and search it like it was their own kid's room and see what they would recognize and what they wouldn't. And parents' minds are just blown. It's such an eye-opening experience. There's so much that, I didn't know either until I started, looking into how to do all this. And so that's how our program started, was in person. And then, of course, with the pandemic, kids weren't even allowed to go to school for school, let alone invite, a group in to educate parents. So for those, the last 2 years, we've taken that in-person program and turned it into a program that's virtual that can also reach parents nationwide. So we turned our presentation into a film. It's like a 45-minute documentary film called Don't Wait. And that's available through our the homepage of our website. So that has all of the information in it that would normally be in our presentation. And then
real quick, Kelly, the website for those as you continue to go, it's addictionisreal.org. So check this out. You can pull this up and continue, Kelly. But again, addictionisreal.org. Continue. Yes, sorry.
And then we took the bedroom piece and actually created a virtual bedroom tool. So It's called Hidden in Plain View. It's also can be found on our homepage, addictionisreal.org. And it allows parents to actually enter a virtual teen bedroom and click around and learn about items that should be a red flag, that should alert you to the fact that something might be going on. So that could be anything from, there's things called stash cans that they sell on Amazon that these kids have such easy access to. The stuff they have access to nowadays is just crazy compared to what we just didn't, because there wasn't the internet. There wasn't Amazon that could get you anything you wanted in 24 hours.
Right.
They can order like a water bottle or a soda can, and it's a real soda can, but it's been turned into a stash. So it's been turned into a hiding place where the lid actually screws off and they can hide things in this soda can. They make a zillion of those. And then things like spoons, if spoons are disappearing from your kitchen is actually a big sign of potential drug use in the home, because that's a way that people cook drugs in spoons. And so there's over 70 different things like that we educate parents on, so that they know to just pay attention and look for these things. I highly encourage still always putting your kids' socks away, because you always need a reason to get in there and look around. In our house, my kids know until you're out of my house, you're in my house, I can go in and look at whatever I want. So I respect their privacy, but I also realize that they're teenagers and their brain's not fully developed, so they're not going to be making great decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I love I'm on there now, the sample bedroom items, right? Where it goes into, we can hover. What's cool about this, for those of you listening or watching, is if you can go to addictionisreal.org, and if you click on the section there where it has the virtual, let me see here, it says, it's actually, the direct address is hipv.addictionisreal.org. So hipv.addictionisreal.org. And what's cool about this is you can search each area. They have these different images that have all these different potential signs of drug use. And just going through here, I'm looking at here, like there's when you scroll, there's a little scroll bar that you can scroll to the left, and it shows you all the different items that are basically right there in plain sight. And just looking at this too, even the one, it has like the pillow and everything on the bed, and but it has a sign with the Mona Lisa, obviously, that has a looks like that's a joint or something, I think she's got, but but that's a sign, right? I mean, hey, this is funny, but it's a sign. It's definitely a sign. The soda can, the Altoids thing. That's crazy. All those little those products. Yeah. You find them in I guess going through this. You can find, your local Walmart online, they'll sell things like this. It's very easy to get. Yeah. I was just curious, like the Red Bull and I think you have the green tea, Arizona green tea, and the Aquafina thing. So is that what's the? I'm just curious with the Red Bull thing.
Yeah. Well,
what's the warning sign there?
Cans. Those are all just like cans that can be opened up, and they're actually hiding things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Especially if they're in a bedroom, why would you keep a can in there? Some people, hey, it could just be,
well, and they're so sneaky.
Around, but...
the people that create these things are pretty clever, and so they will actually create them out of like a Batman special edition Coke can. So it actually might make sense for a kid to keep the can up on their, bookshelf or something. So, they take it to the limit for sure.
Yeah. And that education, I love what you're doing there, because these are things that you don't think of as a parent, right off the top of your head. I mean, it's just not, it's like peripheral vision, right? Like it's there, you don't see it directly, you're not focused in on it. Maybe you're going in there because you got to put their socks away, but we don't always think sometimes, hey, that's an opportunity to not be that parent that's like, oh, why are you going through my stuff, Dad or Mom? You know, like, why are you going through that? Versus like, hey,
we call it hidden in plain view, because most of this stuff is just sitting out and you would just walk right by if you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So we always tell parents, we're not looking to scare you with these things, because that's the one thing that's difficult about the education about substance use and addiction is it's not something when you become a parent that you ever want to have to think about, you know. It's a scary thing, and we just always tell parents, you know, and caregivers, it's not just parents, teachers, counselors, grandparents, but to have the information, and hopefully you'll never have to use it, but it's better to have it and be proactive than to not know and have to suffer the consequences of addiction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're going to save lives. I mean, if you're, I mean, heck, you're watching this podcast right now, go over to addictionisreal.org, watch the film, you know, from the homepage, right? And then also go through the exercise of hidden in plain view, because again, I'm just still blown away by, you know, again, the juice, like a juice box, salt shaker, what's that doing in the bedroom, right? Type of thing. Like it should be in the kitchen, but why is it in the bedroom? A Rubik's Cube. Like you wouldn't think about this type of stuff as a parent, you know? So you have the ability, if you're doing that, you literally can save lives by identifying those things. And I think, now question is, I'm just curious, Kelly, as a parent of my, you know, being a parent, what is usually the best way to address something? So if, say, a parent goes through, they see the bedroom, they see the, you know, these signs that you show in the hidden in plain sight. How does that conversation, how do you usually coach parents on that?
Yes. Well, the first thing is take some time to digest, not a lot of time, but don't just storm into their room and, you know, start screaming, because I know every parent, that's probably what you want to do. But that's not going to get through to anybody. So taking a minute to breathe, and then sitting down with your child and talking calmly and letting them talk. And, you know, a lot of times substance use is a symptom of something else going on, right? Whether your child is suffering from anxiety, depressed, being bullied, feels like just they need to do it to fit in with a group of friends, or whatever it may be. Trying to kind of understand like why they're using drugs and alcohol and what that underlying issue is. And there are many resources on our website and in the community where you can take your child if you believe they're struggling, and you can take them for a sit down with a professional that can tell you kind of, okay, this seems like where it's at and what the next best steps would be. Whether your kid needs inpatient help, whether your kid just needs, you know, like weekly sessions, or maybe it needs like a psychiatrist, counselor to deal with one of those underlying issues. But trying to, you know, have a healthy, balanced conversation and not doing all the talking, you know, listening to and giving them an opportunity to talk. Sometimes I feel like as parents, we just talk so much, and then they're just burnt out, you know. There's nothing wrong with sitting in a room with your kid for 5 minutes in silence and just waiting for them to gather up the courage to tell you what they're going through. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of it is listening.
Yeah.
Right. It's listening and allowing them to get those things out. And that's number one, like you said. And number two is the fact of a lot of these addiction issues come from underlying issues, like, you know, health and mental issues that can be corrected, right? Like anxiety is something that we're all surrounded with. I mean, you need to have anxiety. It's a very important thing to have anxiety. It sounds like an oxymoron. It sounds wrong. It doesn't sound right, but yet we need that we're driving a car. You need to have enough there. So you stop at the stop sign and so you are alert enough to be able to do what you do. Right. But a lot of people sometimes, especially nowadays, we live in a world that surrounded by is such a negativity in the media and everything else that you start to every little thing that adds up, because it goes into your subconscious mind. It goes maybe into your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind. And I was watching, which Bruce Lipton, I think it was. I watched a lot of his podcasts, and he talks about basically your subconscious mind is like the equivalent. I can't remember the exact number, but it was like something like a hard drive, like a 10 terabyte hard drive or something. It might have been my numbers might be off, but your conscious mind is something like a 10-bit. A 10-bit hard drive. So it's got very little processing power compared to your subconscious. So we realize the point with all that is that with a lot of kids that are being exposed to negative media, they're being exposed to social media, which is now causing all sorts of problems, because now they're seeing their friends in filters and everything else, and this is the way they should be, and they don't look like that. So then that causes, at the end of the day, that might consciously that might be like, okay, I feel like they're missing out. But subconsciously, that means that maybe they're not feeling like they have enough, which again leads to things like anxiety. Well, guess what? One of the ways to overcome some of that is some of that short-term, substance abuse, which is alcohol abuse. Some people like, I'm stressed out, I got to go drink, right? Or
one of the doctors in our film, and Don't Wait, he makes a great point, and he said, in this country, it's easier to go buy a bottle of alcohol than it is to get an outpatient psychiatric appointment. And that's just true. Sadly.
It's true. Yeah, it's like buying vegetables, right? It's expensive to buy that. Why is that expensive? Why are they going up? Why blueberries going up to $9 for a thing like that, or whatever, to whatever the box we get, or whatever? It's like, good gosh, it went from like $6 to $9. Like, dude, we're in inflation right now, like crazy. But but that's, I think going back to that, I think the subconscious mind, when children are being exposed to that, and they not realize it's anxiety until they get a little bit older too. They're like, okay, what's this weird feeling that I have? Because you're a little more educated maybe on the topic, but I think that paying attention to that, and then like getting that psychiatric help, getting those types of things in place, to treat the problem and not the symptoms.
Right.
Like I would imagine, like, as I see it, it's like, okay, the symptom is don't do drugs. You're doing drugs. Don't do drugs, right? You're drinking alcohol. Don't drink alcohol. That's the symptom.
Yes.
Do what you're saying. And what you guys do is really help help the parent to diagnose at some level, to at least to be aware enough to be able to diagnose the underlying issue. Okay, maybe that's anxiety, maybe that's depression, maybe that's because they're on social, that could be because they're on social media. So you take here's the core problem, but what's the cause, what's the stressor, what's causing that stressor? It could be overload of social media. Right. All these different factors that go into that. And
it could be a ton of different things, trying to get to the root of why they feel like they have to numb or use a substance to feel normal. The other thing about teenagers is their brain's still developing. And we talk to parents a lot about that too. And how their brain is still developing. And because that front part of their brain is the last to develop, well, that's the part of your brain that helps you to make good decisions and helps you to see the long-term consequences of your actions. And so that makes sense why teenagers do really stupid things sometimes.
Sure.
And that's okay. Teenagers are going to make mistakes. And I think that, if teens think that they have to be perfect and that they can't disappoint their parents, that's a lot of pressure.
Huge amount.
Everybody makes mistakes. But if you're on the right path, that's what matters. And so just having that conversation and that repertoire with your kids is huge. And the other thing we talk to parents about is because of that brain development, a lot of parents think it's okay I'll take the kids' keys and they can drink in my basement and I'll supervise, so we know nobody's going anywhere and it'll be fine. Well, the problem with addiction is that the sooner you start introducing substances into a developing brain, the more likely you are to have to struggle with addiction the rest of your life. So the average age in the United States of a kid trying alcohol for the first time is 13. So if a 13-year-old starts drinking, their chances of struggling with addiction later in life are up to 43%, which is a lot. If they can wait till the legal age of 21 to start drinking, those chances of struggling with addiction goes down to 7%. So for every year that you can hold off from experimenting with these substances, the less likely you are to struggle with addiction for the rest of your life. Wow. So that's kind of the argument that I use with parents when they say, well, we're going to, keep them in the basement and they'll be fine. It's like, but they're doing permanent damage to their brain because their brain is being trained to want these substances at a young age.
Yeah. And you're introducing that just like a young child. I think it's up until the age of 7 or something. I think they go through their brain. It's like they're not even like fully conscious. I think they're like in one of the alpha, beta, whatever those brain waves are. Like they're not even like in full like brainwave mode, like the way we are. Right. So they're not like they're conscious, but like it's at a different level. It's a different, like their brain waves are even functioning differently. When you figure a teenager who is now their brain's still developing and everything, like, they're like psychologically, they're not even in the same state. So they're introduced early, you start building those habits and everything else. It's harder to crack too, I would imagine too, to get out. I mean, it's more likely, but I would imagine it's also harder to stop. Once you've done that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is an eye opener, Kelly, for sure. It's especially like stats like that. Yeah. Stats like that are eye openers, and for sure it's like, okay, well, we could wait until next year to talk. He's 13 now, or she's 13 now. We'll wait until next year to talk to him. Well, every year, if they start that this year, and then that's what you say was it 43%? That more likely to have issues with substance abuse.
Yep.
So it's like, don't wait. Right. Don't wait to have that conversation. And if you think you're just going to keep them down in the basement,
don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that off the top of my head, but it makes sense. Like, well, and reality is they're going to be downstairs drinking at some point. If they have a problem, we're going to figure out a way to get that stuff down there and everything. And because if you tell somebody, it's funny. It's really not funny, but it's, I have with my child, it's like, hey, if you tell him not to do something, guess what? He wants to do it. He's like, I want to go against you. Right.
A lot of kids don't. I mean, I didn't know the science behind it when I was in high school, and I had some drinks in high school, but I just thought that it was the age of 21 because, they just were having more fun than we just weren't old enough yet. It was just to keep something away from us. And it's like, no, there's actually scientific, reasons why. And so I think educating yourself and having those conversations with your teenager and actually having, a scientific conversation so that they understand it's not just because we don't want you to have fun. It's because you could actually really cause yourself some problems later in life and now. So, the other thing that I think is really important for parents to know is just this fentanyl that's out in the market right now. And so in the United States, the average age that kids actually start experimenting with prescription medicine is 11. So that's kind of the first thing that kids are starting to go to because it's easily accessible in their homes. And they also think it's maybe the safest option because if it's prescribed by a doctor, it can't hurt you, right?
Right.
So the DEA actually released a public health warning last year. They don't do that very often. I think it was the first time in 9 years that they did it. Warning people about the fentanyl that's entering our country. And these people are making fake pills that look just like a real Adderall or a real Xanax. And teens are taking it thinking they know what they're getting, and they're dying because it has fentanyl in it. And it's 3 grains of fentanyl, the size of salt. 3 grains of salt. That's enough to kill you. So they say 4 out of every 10 pills, counterfeit pills on the market is fatal, deadly. And the DEA seized enough fentanyl last year in 2021 in the United States to kill every American in this country. So this stuff is coming in fast, and it is infiltrating our streets. So unless a pill was prescribed for you by a doctor and filled at a pharmacy that you're familiar with, don't take it.
Yeah. That's crazy. The size of salt, what did you say, 3 grains of salt can kill you.
Yeah. And the people making these pills don't care. It's like a chocolate chip cookie. Sometimes you get a cookie that has a bunch of chocolate chips. Other times doesn't have as many. They're just mixing it in a batch and tossing it out there, and they don't care if it's going to kill you or not. So it's really, really dangerous.
That is nuts. You don't even think, so if somebody's like, hey, you want this, you want a Benadryl or whatever whatever the drug is, it's not, because you don't see that it's, you're not getting it from your doctor, not getting it from your pharmacist, you're not getting it, and even just being involved into the process of that, right? Because who knows? I mean, somebody could sneak that into your box of Benadryl or whatever, right? So, that's really important information to know. The film, does that cover? I'm definitely going to sit down and watch this. So that covers all these things, right?
Yeah. So it was great because, when we were doing our in-person presentations, it was just us, and that's great. But when we created the film, we were able to pull in some great experts to participate. So we actually have, a special agent in charge from the DEA in the film, and he talks about fentanyl.
Wow.
We have a doctor that specializes in addiction, and he really digs into addiction and teenagers and the teenage brain and how that all works. And so the film is just a phenomenal way in 50 minutes to sit down and educate yourself on all of the important things you need to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll make sure we put links to that as well in our descriptions here in the podcast and everything. Kelly, you were an amazing guest. I really enjoyed. I know we talked about sort of a time frame for this, and I'm like, enjoyed. I feel like the information that we've covered today is so important, and I think what you've done extremely well is diligently done your research. You're engaging the right people. I mean, and you're educating. I learned a ton today, just from talking to you, hearing you, and obviously gaining access to the resources that you have. Addictionisreal.org, right? Going there and just getting started there. I particularly want to support personally want to support your organization, what you're doing. So what, for other people out there too, that are saying, okay, well, maybe I don't have kids, or maybe you do have kids, whatever, but you just believe into this, right? You believe in, and there's no doubt that this is an issue for sure in the United States. How can somebody support? What's the best way for somebody to support you?
Yeah, well, I would say, obviously, financially, we're supported mostly by individual donors and corporate donors. So we offer sponsorship opportunities for corporations with some great benefits. Individually, you can donate on our website. And then also, if you have a local school or a local drug-free coalition, which most neighborhoods or communities do, tell them about us, because they can license the film from us and then distribute it to the community, have a showing in your community, invite people. Our goal is to get these resources in the hands of as many parents as possible, because every parent deserves to know what they can do to help keep their kids healthy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Spreading the word about our program, it would be a huge benefit to us.
Yeah. And one of the best ways too is also to take this interview. Yeah. Watching this, you're on YouTube or wherever this is at. This interview goes to a lot of places. Be sure to share it. Hit share, share it with your friends, your family, to help have them hear this. It will save lives. By you sharing this video, it will save lives. You might not necessarily see it. It might not be direct, but the more people that see this, I think this is a great interview, Kelly, and the information you shared. And obviously it provides that this interview also contains a lot of the information and direct resources, mainly by going to addictionisreal.org. You guys have done a great job with your website there and by sharing all that information and educating. So, but I think by sharing, you have the ability to do that, right? That doesn't cost anything initially, but it makes a huge impact. The more people that do that, the more lives we're going to save, right? We just know that that's the case.
Yeah.
So the other thing you can do is be sure to like the video, be sure to subscribe to the Missions That Made Them too. So I'd love to, Kelly, have you back on.
Sure.
To cover some different topics, maybe go a little bit into some of the education, maybe make this a little bit more of a platform for some of that, more specifically. So be sure to subscribe to that. And any last words here, Kelly, before we hop off?
No, just thank you for having me. And like you said, on my heart, I really just think if we can save one family from having to struggle with what my family, and I know so many other families have struggled with, it's all worthwhile, because addiction is a preventable disease, which is great. And that gives us a lot of power, but it's also not curable, but there is a recovery that works. But, this is a disease of the brain. And so that recovery takes a lifelong commitment. So if we can focus on prevention and not having to have families go down this road, that would be the best option for everybody.
Yeah. And it starts with you, right? It starts with the individual to make that decision. I mean, you have the two choices. You can sit and do nothing about it and just watch it in the news and watch the statistics go up more, and we've all been touched. I mean, in some way, shape, or form by somebody with drugs and alcohol. I mean, the statistics are just there to back that up. So it's identifying and being a part of that solution, educating yourself into that, sharing the information and enabling organizations, more importantly, enabling organizations like Addiction Is Real to be the platform, to build even a stronger platform by providing them with the resources. That's why donating is very important. What a better feeling you get as a donor to, you work so hard for your money and everything else, but then, to see it going into an organization that is making real change, is making a real difference. And you really are working hard, Kelly, you and your team, to make that happen. So, but if you're looking for a best way to donate, a place to donate to, there is no better feeling you get by supporting an organization like that, and that there is a transaction with that, right? So it's unlike donate. You're donating. Some people, it's like, oh, my money's going away. No, it's helping. It's helping this world become a better place. And so, if you have the financial resources to do that, I urge you to make that happen. You're going to feel better today by doing that. And with that said, Kelly, you're amazing, incredible.
Thanks for having me.
And you are a part of the solution that is making this world a better place. And I thank you and appreciate you. And for everybody else out there, I thank you and appreciate you for watching today. And I'll catch you soon.